is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with Alessandro Pra from Horrible Games.
Hi.
Looking at The King's Dilemma by Lorenzo Silva and Hjalmar Hoch.
Yeah.
It's a prototype at the moment.
Yes, very fancy, but yeah, it's still a prototype.
Okay.
Yes.
Obviously, the king has a problem. Is there ever like the king's happy fun times?
Yeah, no, and
No.
They never do.
They never have that. So what are we doing here? What is our role involved with the
Each
king?
player will take the role of a leader of one of the noble families of the kingdom,
Okay.
and they will all participate. They are members of the King's Council,
Okay.
who basically rule the kingdom in place of the king, who doesn't really care.
Okay.
So this is a legacy game. So each player, you choose a family when you start, and then you take a screen and you sign it. So this is now your family.
Okay.
And you will always play with that family for the whole campaign of the game. The game lasts many games. So.
Okay. And what's the player count here? We got a lot of
It's from
screens.
3 to 5 players, but we support up to 12 different families. So maybe in one game you have different people from the previous one, so you can have them join with new families.
Okay.
And in the end of the whole campaign, all the scores will count towards the final victory of the game, even if each single game also has individual victory conditions and individual winners. Yes. So, as members of the King's Council, people have to face the many problems that the kingdom will face from time to time. And it works like this. In the beginning of the game, there is a starting envelope that you have to open. And then there is the initial deck of dilemma cards. Each card is a dilemma, problem. And one of the players reads the story. For example, to make it short, this just says that the general of our armies tells that some people are smuggling precious metal, very strong for making good weapons, and they're selling it to us. And we have to choose if we want to reserve this metal for military use or to make it free trade for everyone, so that everyone can benefit. The players then have to vote which decision we want to make. If we decide to make it a military exclusive, we can see that so we say yes, our influence will increase because our army will have stronger weapons, so we will be stronger in fighting. But if we decide to not give this to the military as an exclusive, I don't find the token, but our commerce will. Here it is. Our commerce will go up. Okay. So the thing is that these values going up, and for example, if we say yes, the influence will rise, depending on So if you say yes or no. You turn the card on a different side. So if you say yes, value, for example, in this case, the influence goes up 2 levels, but also a different event happens. So you also have a different story that unfolds depending on your decisions. You have 2 drives. One thing is that the players have to cooperatively keep the kingdom going. So you don't want the values to. There is basically an optimal range, and if you don't want the kingdom to bust, let's say, you have to keep everything under control. But each player also has a secret personal agenda. For example, this player wants all values to be on the high side. These players want the values to be on the extreme sides. Okay. So maybe some player will try to push the things in a direction that is good for them, but not good for the kingdom, because every time one of the values moves, the overall stability of the kingdom also moves. For example, if this goes up 2, this also goes up 2. And the kingdom busts when the stability is too high or too low. So basically this is the dry mechanic at the center of the game. But the real core is the story. So you start with just a few cards. Then, for example, in this card, let's say we said, yes, this metal will be a military exclusive. So this value up, the influence rises, stability also rises. We have this tells we have a very strong army, blah blah blah, and we open bag 61. So you go into the box, you search for the bag with the correct number, and now you also open that. And you can see the very strong metal we now use for our weapons. And you fold, you discard the card that you just used. You never use it again. And you read a story card that stays in play. So this reminds us that this is happening in the kingdom. All the other cards get shuffled into the deck, which should be bigger than this.
Okay.
So
it's building this timeline as well.
The next time, something from one of the open events may happen. Okay. Each card poses you a problem, and you have to vote. You always see more or less what kind of value can change, but sometimes
you don't know how extreme or what
you don't know how extreme, and sometimes there are hidden values that you can, if you read the text, you can see something is not explicitly told, but you can still figure it out. For example, if a card says the farmers are rioting, do we send the army to repress the riot? The card doesn't say you that the people will be unhappy, but maybe you can figure that out. Yeah, you can probably figure that out on yourself.
Yes.
And this is it.
So within an individual game, are you playing a certain number of turns or years, or
yes,
how do you
there are
proceed?
different ways in which a single game can end. One is if players let the kingdom bust.
Okay.
Sometimes the cards will tell you there is this small symbol here. Mm-hmm. This means that the king is growing old. Okay. So one other way in which, every time you solve a card, time goes on.
Okay.
If we are in the final 3 spaces and the king is growing old icon comes out, it means the king is dead and the game is over and you count the points. Or the game simply ends after I don't know how many cards is that, but after that number of cards the game ends, because each game is the rule of one king.
Okay.
Then the next
you are the
game,
family over multiple generations with your interests.
The game spans multiple generations. The winner of the single game gets to be, his family will be the next family to rule, because the heir will marry the king's daughter or vice versa. So there will be a list of all the kings of the game. So at the end of each game, the winning player will sign the list of kings, so you will have a track of all that. And this is how a single game ends. The overall campaign can last a varying number of games, from I think 15 to 20, something like that. Okay. Something like that. And it is triggered by, there are 6 different branching and
converging storylines.
When 6, as marked here. So every time an event from one of the stories happens, you will put the story cards in these spaces. So you can also, the single DiIemma cards get removed from the game, but the story cards stay. So you can always take the small deck of that story and, I don't know, see the previously on King's Dilemma and see what happened.
Right.
When all 6 stories come to one of their possible endings, because each one of them has different possible endings, The real final ending of the game gets unlocked. I don't spoil what that will entail, and after that, the scores of all players that gets recorded on your screen during all the games will be will be matched, and basically you will see who is the overall winner.
Okay. Along with points from individual games, I see each family has their own achievements.
Yes,
they're
each
trying to do.
family has a background which is not just text, but it's important to. Each family has a sort of secret agenda of their own, so there are some events they would like to see happen. Okay. Then there is the scores from the game, and then you also have special achievements. For example, this family wants to find harmony between science and religion. Okay. This other family wants to subdue the outcasts. Yeah. And then there are also other kinds of achievement related to a single game. These are more overarching, long-term. Some are long-term, some are short-term. Also, there is a lot of these long-term, short-term balance in the game, because you also have some cards. All cards have the values move, but some of them will also have you attach stickers on this board. So, for example, this one says, we caused a diplomatic accident, okay? And it goes attached here. So you will attach it to the board. The player who most invested power in that vote, so he is the responsible for this, signs it. Right. So this is an ongoing event with long-term effects. And every time something related to this diplomatic incident will happen, that player, since this is a negative event, that player will have some penalty. Okay. And you also check how many stickers each player has, and this determines, for example, this player caused a damage to our influence, and if he is the one who caused the most damage to the influence of the kingdom, he gets this token, and this means that player will have to do all he can to keep the influence on the upper side, because if not, people will say, this is all your fault, and he will get penalty points for that. So sometimes you want something to happen to move the short-term values, but these will have consequences in the long term that maybe you will only have to face in the next game or 2 games next this one. So you get the idea.
Okay. All right, there's a lot going on.
Yes?
Okay.
Definitely.
Yes.
It's difficult to speak about this game because we don't want to spoil the story, which is the most important part.
It's laying the groundwork on here, and people go from there. Well, thank you, Alessandro.
Thanks to you.
For the preview of The King's Dilemma.
Bye.